somebody who decries capitalism. Meanwhile, by the way, he's a trust fund baby.
You put your finger on it. Companies vote with their capital.
Government-run grocery stores, but, you know, free busing and mass transit.
I want to hop into a Fox News segment with MAGA Mike Lawler whining about Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani, who just has the right absolutely triggered since his primary victory, despite them telling us not to cry about Trump's victory because he got a mandate, but I guess Mamdani didn't. I digress. Leave us a like on the video if you can, though. It helps us out a ton. It gives us a boost in the algorithm. It's free, and it only takes a second. And let's see what context we can add.
He wants to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu, but not Hamas. He wants government-run grocery stores, but fewer prisons. Even some Democrats appear smart enough to want to avoid him.
No question. You know, when you look at the policies that he's espoused, from legalizing prostitution to banning prisons, cashless bail, defunding the police, not just government-run grocery stores, but, you know, free busing and mass transit. Who's paying for all of this? I mean, at the end of the day, as Margaret Thatcher famously said, the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money.
I love that MAGA uses this line specifically as if it's religious text that can't be invalidated. And it comes from Margaret Thatcher, who oversaw mass unemployment, the closure of multiple major industries, and increases in homelessness and poverty. Sounds like she really had a grasp on macroeconomics, guys. Also, there's a lot there he said that isn't true. Mamdani isn't calling for defunding the police. He's never said he doesn't think Hamas should be arrested. He just thinks Netanyahu should, as he should, because he is a war criminal with warrants, and he should be arrested if he comes through the United States, just like Hamas leadership to that point, which Mamdani also agrees with. And they're going to pay for these things by matching New Jersey's corporate tax rate, which I believe it's marginal, and I believe the top is only like 11.5% or something, as well as a 2% tax on millionaires. I know, guys, scary communism, where again, we should note this mass exodus of everyone and all the businesses leaving after a tax hike has never happened in American history, like Republicans swear it will every time they're proposed. In fact, our greatest economic periods are when our tax rates have been the highest. We should go back to what works.
You put your finger on it. Companies vote with their capital. He has disdain for capitalism. How's that going to work out? Because as you just forecast, there's already out-migration. Companies big. It's a financial center. New York is the epicenter for lots of business. They may start deciding that there are cities like Greenville and Spartanburg and Dallas and other cities.
And this is why semantics can be frustrating. And at this point, I think political labels are mostly useless for the person labeling themselves. They're more used as fodder for the other side to attribute a bunch of things to you probably don't believe. Mamdani is essentially running on like the Bernie Sanders platform. He has no aspirations to legislate the seizing of the means of production. Would be cooler if he did, by the way. He's just a guy who thinks we should better fund, expand, and strengthen our social programs through socialized funding mechanisms, i.e. taxation instead of private funding, and that billionaires and poverty coexisting in a society is an objective failure of an economic system, which it literally is. You couldn't give a coherent and moral definition or purpose for an economic system that wouldn't directly lead to the conclusion that both of these things existing at once would be an objective failure.
Somebody who decries capitalism. Meanwhile, by the way, he's a trust fund baby. His mother was a Hollywood producer, so you can't even make this up. But the fact is, New York is the financial capital of the world. We didn't build those buildings through socialism or communism. They got built through capitalism. They got built through investment. And by other countries wanting to invest in the U.S., by companies around the United States coming to New York and wanting to build and expand. And we're seeing it crumble before our very eyes.
I mean, now he's just doing all the greatest hits. He's done the Margaret Thatcher quote. He's done the, oh, everyone's going to leave. And now he's pretending that socialism has to be a poverty cult where everyone is poor because, again, they don't know what they're actually talking about. Socialism is just buzzword for bad thing that make rich people poor. So let's tell poor people that it'll also keep them poor. Like the greatest trick of capitalists is to just take the effects of capitalism or what capitalism does and just call that socialism. I swear to God, right? Socialism isn't when everybody poor. Socialists don't have an inherent problem with money or people getting wealthy. We have a problem with people getting wealthy at the expense of the poor. Like, it's that very specific principle where New York, for instance, wasn't built on capitalism. It was built on slave labor and exploitation, right? And the fact that he can't even admit that shows how little he is based in reality. If you want to deem those qualities as the qualities of capitalism worth bragging about, so be it. Weird flex, I guess. This is all just a bunch of fear mongering from people who don't understand what they're even talking about, but they want to line their pockets more. And to the extent they do understand it, they understand that, well, we aren't going to be able to keep exploiting labor to get richer. So they have to convince voters that things like free transit and free childcare are bad and evil for them.